Hi, this is Kendall Boyson, professional life and recovery coach, and you're listening to Encouragementology, the practice of instilling hope. Hi there. Thanks for joining me. On this show, we're exploring how you can do hard things, build resilience, and beat procrastination. We're diving into that moment when your brain whispers, nah, let's just wait. Doing hard stuff is hard. And you know what? That's totally okay. Procrastination isn't about laziness. It's your body's way of dodging discomfort. We'll explore how resilience isn't about superhero strength. It's about learning to lean into the challenge, even when you'd rather binge watch from your comfort zone. Life tosses curveballs. Overwhelm, fear of failing, perfectionism, or just sheer dread of starting. But guess what? Even taking the tiniest step counts as a win. I'll walk you through what's really going on in your brain. Then we'll share a laugh or two as we explore strategies that empower, not overwhelm. Stick around. By the end, procrastination might just feel a little more conquerable and maybe even a bit fun. Let's start by getting on the same page. We're tossing around two big emotionally loaded words today, resilience and procrastination. And if you're like most of us, they come with a mix of admiration, guilt, hope, and ugh. So before we dig in, let's unpack what they really mean. No shame, no psych textbook, just real talk. Resilience is often portrayed as superhero stuff. People running back into burning buildings, climbing mountains with one leg, bouncing back from personal tragedy like it was just a flat tire. But in everyday life, resilience looks more like showing up to a meeting you're dreading, trying again after failing, or getting out of bed when everything in your body says no thanks. It's not about being immune to struggle. It's about finding a way through it. Resilience is messy, imperfect, and deeply human. It's the part of you that whispers, try again, when the louder voice in you says, just quit. On the other hand, procrastination is often misjudged as laziness or a lack of discipline. But spoiler alert, it's not. Procrastination is actually a form of emotional self-protection. It's your brain saying, that task looks uncomfortable. Let's go organize the fridge instead. You delay not because you don't care, but because something about that task, fear of failure, fear of success, overwhelm, boredom, feels threatening or unpleasant. So you put it off, and then you beat yourself up for putting it off. Sound familiar? Now here's the twist. Resilience and procrastination are often in a tug of war. One says, do the thing, even if it's hard. The other says, let's not feel uncomfortable right now, okay? And depending on the day, the hour, or the amount of coffee you've had, either one might win. But today's conversation is about recognizing that dynamic and learning how to build up your inner resilience so that it's the stronger of the two. Because you really can do hard things. You just might need a little help getting started. All right, now that we've demystified both resilience and procrastination, let's turn the spotlight inward. No pressure. No judgment, just a little self-inventory. Because knowing the definitions is helpful, but knowing how they show up in your life, that's where the good stuff starts. So let's start with a quick gut check. Think of something, big or small, that you've been putting off. Could be calling somebody back, organizing a closet, submitting that form, writing that email, or even starting something you say you want to do. Got it? Okay, now hold that in your mental viewfinder for a second. Ask yourself, am I putting this off because I'm overwhelmed by the size of it? Am I afraid I'll mess it up or that I won't do it perfectly? Am I telling myself I need to feel more motivated before I begin? Am I delaying because it's boring, uncomfortable, or emotionally charged? Now, take a second and label that procrastination style. If it had a personality, what would it be? Is it the perfectionist procrastinator, afraid to start unless it's going to be flawless? Or the avoidant procrastinator, dodging the emotional discomfort like it's a game of dodgeball? Or maybe the overachiever staller, trying to do too many things and quietly ignoring the ones that feel emotionally risky. And hey, if your procrastination is currently dressed in yoga pants, organizing junk drawers, and alphabetizing your spice rack while you avoid your actual to-do list, well, you're not alone. Now here's the fun part. Take that same task you thought of earlier and ask yourself, what would it look like to do just 5 minutes of it? Not finish it, not make it amazing, just start. 5 imperfect minutes, maybe even 2. Could you tolerate a little discomfort for a short amount of time? This is where resilience starts to speak up. It doesn't come barging in like a motivational speaker with a headset. It tiptoes in and says, hey, you don't have to do it all. Just begin. I've got you. We're not here to shame your delays. We're here to get curious about them and find ways to shift the conversation from I can't to I could try. Before we go any further, let's bring in a little backup because it's not just you and it's not just me. I found an article that helped me zoom out and understand the deeper why behind procrastination. Sometimes hearing it from a psychologist gives us permission to let go of shame and start getting curious. So, if you've ever found yourself avoiding something important while deeply invested in alphabetizing your sock drawer or watching one more video on how to fold a fitted sheet, well, this one's for you. Let's take a look at what the experts say about why we put things off and how it's often more about protection than it is about productivity. It's the end of your workday and you're staring at the to-do list you made earlier. You have one project at the bottom of the list that you've been putting off. It's already late. You still haven't gotten to it. You tell yourself you'll tackle the item tomorrow. You become increasingly frustrated with yourself for not getting it done. If this sounds like you, you're not alone. Almost everyone procrastinates at one point or another. For many, the issue doesn't interfere with their quality of life. But if you find yourself continually procrastinating and then regretting it, you could be caught in a negative cycle. It's easy to be hard on yourself when you delay tasks, either at home or in the workplace. But do you deserve self-criticism? Or is your procrastination pointing to something more serious? It's important to know that procrastination is not your fault. There are reasons we engage in this behavior, and there are ways we can address it. Experts define procrastination as a self-defeating behavior pattern marked by short-term benefits and long-term costs. Many of us know it as putting things off that we need to get done, no matter the level of difficulty behind the task. We all procrastinate from time to time. However, when we develop a habit of putting off necessary actions, even when we face negative consequences, procrastination can affect our well-being. According to a study in 2014 on procrastination and coping, 20 to 25% of adults worldwide are chronic procrastinators. The issue can be linked to depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, ADHD, and poor study habits. Procrastination is connected to negative functioning and risks to mental health. People who procrastinate tend to have high levels of anxiety as well as poor impulse control. Procrastination is even linked to physical illness. People who procrastinate experience more stress and tend to delay treatments, which can create a cycle of poor health due to just putting things off. We all procrastinate sometimes. Dr. Michelle Silverman helps us recognize when procrastination can be disruptive in a young person's life and what to do when it is. Even though procrastination results in more stress in the long term, people may delay action with the idea that they will feel better in the short term. Studies consistently show that our stress levels are higher as a result of procrastination. There are a number of reasons why you may procrastinate, like feeling bored. It makes sense that if you perceive an activity as boring or unpleasant, you're far more likely to put it off until later. Or lack of belief in your abilities. Another reason why you may procrastinate, you lack faith in your own abilities. Believing that you can carry out tasks is essential to functioning. If your sense of self-efficacy is low, you're less likely to begin a task or to see it through. You may procrastinate out of fear. For example, you might delay essential medical tests because you're afraid of a diagnosis. The more anxiety we experience around a task, the more likely we'll put it off until later. Social anxiety can also play a role. The fear of being judged or embarrassed can cause you to put off scheduling meetings or completing projects. Perfectionism can play a role in procrastination. People may delay tasks they believe they won't perform well or that they'll fail altogether. They may try to put off a task until they suddenly feel more inspired or have a better idea, even though inspiration is more likely to strike once a person starts a task. Distractions in our environment can prevent us from focusing on the task at hand. Many of us can relate to the lure of social media over a dreaded activity like paying bills. Researchers believe procrastination has increased in recent years. Technology has been a factor. However, procrastination has been reported as a human behavior throughout history. Studies show young people are more likely to procrastinate than older age groups. In fact, many people seem to outgrow procrastination as they mature. A 2016 study that analyzed procrastination in several different age groups found that procrastination was highest in the 14 to 29-year-olds, the youngest age group studied. The same study reports that people procrastinate less as they age. Researchers believe the decline is linked to personality development, changes in time perception, and increased coping skills. In particular, people tend to develop more conscientiousness with age. Individuals with this personality trait tend to be more careful and thorough. Conscientiousness is linked to several positive aspects of life, from fulfillment with work to healthy relationships. The more conscientious a person is, the less likely they are to procrastinate. Another reason older people may procrastinate less, they have more awareness that time is limited. Young people tend to have abstract thoughts about time. As people become more aware of their own mortality, they realize they cannot indefinitely delay what needs to be done. So in a nutshell, well, procrastination isn't a sign of laziness or moral failing. It's a self-defeating behavior pattern that offers short-term relief but leads to long-term costs. Sounds like something to work on, right? It's also closely tied to anxiety, poor impulse control, and lower self-esteem. The quieter truth? You're not a procrastinator because you're lazy. You're procrastinating because your brain is trying to protect you from emotional discomfort, fear, or overwhelm. When we understand that, shame fades and self-compassion begins. All right, we've unpacked the psychology, we've reflected on our own patterns, and we've realized we're not alone in the art of artful avoidance. So now, what do we do with all that awareness? How do we start building resilience and slowly but surely outsmart that inner voice that says, let's just do it tomorrow, forever? Here's the key. We're not aiming for a full life makeover here. No massive all or nothing declarations. Instead, we're focused on micro moves, small shifts that stack up over time and quietly rewire your relationship with discomfort. Think of this as a soft nudge forward, not a shove. Grab your pen, grab your paper. Try these 5 action steps. Number 1, shrink the task until it's laughably doable. If writing a report sounds dreadful, commit to writing the title. Just 1 sentence, that's it. The smaller the start, the more likely your brain will say, well, all right then, let's get started. Number 2, use the 5-minute rule. Tell yourself you only have to do the thing for 5 minutes. No strings attached. More often than not, once you're in motion, momentum picks up and keeps you going. Number 3, name your procrastination style. Give it a character name, like Nervous Nelly, Avoidant Andy, Perfectionist Pam. When it shows up, say, I see you, Pam. Thanks for trying to protect me, but I've got this. Humor disarms shame. Number 4, reframe the discomfort. Instead of saying, this is hard, try, this is something I haven't figured out yet. Add that tiny yet, and suddenly you give yourself room to grow instead of room to quit. And number 5, celebrate the start, not the finish line, not the perfectly tied bow, the start. Even if it's just a 5-minute attempt or 1 brave moment of action, celebrate it like it's a championship win. Why? Because it is. Resilience doesn't always look like charging the battlefield. Sometimes it looks like opening the laptop, making the call, lacing up the shoes, saying, all right, I'll try. And the more you show up imperfectly, inconsistently, awkwardly, the more you prove to yourself that you can do hard things, even when you really don't want to. Before we wrap up our exploration, let's pause and bring in a little extra kindness from you to you. Because honestly, beating yourself up for procrastinating is like trying to motivate your dog with fear. It doesn't work, and it's just sad for everyone involved. This next article invites us to flip the script. Instead of shame, what if we responded to our own struggle with a deep, gentle understanding? Let's explore how self-compassion doesn't enable procrastination. It loosens its grip. Why do we procrastinate? We've already explored several ideas, but let's dig into Linda Graham's. She is a marriage and family therapist and the author of Bouncing Back, Rewiring Your Brain for Maximum Resilience and Well-Being. Why does she think we procrastinate? Often because we fear failing at the task and dread all the negative self-evaluations that might result from that failure. Unconsciously, feeling okay about oneself becomes more important than achieving the goal. But the procrastination, of course, triggers other negative feelings about ourselves, recriminations and ruminations for failing to take action. In 20 years of providing psychotherapy, she said, I've witnessed so many times how paralysis in the face of the task or problem can lead to escalating levels of self-criticism or self-deprecation, a self-perpetuating downward negative spiral. Most procrastination fighting techniques focus on ways to change a person's behavior. Just get started, take action, any kind of action. But a recent study suggests a different approach. Being kind to yourself. Fuchsia M. Saroy of Bishop's University in Canada examined whether self-compassion, kindness and understanding towards oneself in response to pain and failure could be related to procrastination and the stress and suffering that it causes. The study, recently published in Self and Identity, asked more than 750 participants to complete a questionnaire measuring levels of self-compassion and its components. Extending kindness towards oneself in response to a mistake rather than judging oneself harshly. Recognizing that one shares the struggles with procrastination with many other people rather than feeling isolated or the only one. And seeing clearly the big picture about one's predicament rather than over-identifying with negative self-evaluations. The participants also reported their levels of procrastination and stress. Saroy found that people prone to procrastination had lower levels of self-compassion and higher levels of stress. Further analysis revealed that procrastination might increase levels of stress, particularly among people low in self-compassion. In fact, her results suggest that self-compassion may play an important role in explaining why procrastination can generate so much stress for people. She explains it as negative self-judgments and feeling isolated by one's procrastinating can be a stressful experience that compromises the well-being of those who chronically procrastinate. She suggests that interventions that focus on increasing self-compassion may be particularly beneficial for reducing the stress associated with procrastination, because self-compassion allows a person to recognize the downsides of procrastination without entangling themselves in the negative. People maintain an inner sense of well-being that allows them to risk failure and take action. Self-compassion is an adaptive practice that may provide a buffer against negative reactions to self-relevant events. The implication is that by interpreting the loop between negative self-talk and procrastination, self-compassion may help us avoid the stress associated with procrastination, extricate ourselves from the downward spiral, and help us change our behavior for the better. Interestingly, her study found that students tend to procrastinate more than adults, possibly because they seem less able to regulate their negative emotions and negative self-evaluations. Saroy's study doesn't prove that a lack of self-compassion directly causes procrastination or that low self-compassion is what causes procrastination to be so stressful. While her study reveals significant links, further research needs to be done on the connections between self-compassion, procrastination, and stress. Her study is actually the first study even to examine the role of self-compassion in the procrastination stress equation. Linda said, Soroy's findings resonate with strategies I've tried to offer clients in my psychotherapy practice. I teach clients to take a self-compassion break anytime they seem thrown or derailed by pain or failure, whether caused by their own personal failure or by forces beyond their control. Based on exercises in the Kristin Neff's book, Self-Compassion, the self-compassion break allows a person to develop the understanding that self-judgment and avoiding actions might trigger self-judgment is a very human response to very human experiences. I suggest that clients take a self-compassion break many times a day so that it becomes an automatic positive resource when they first encounter the automatic negative thoughts and states of mind that procrastination can trigger. Here is how Linda breaks it down into 5 steps for her clients. Number 1, several times a day, stop whatever you're doing and ask yourself, what am I experiencing in this moment right now? Is there any negative self-talk, self-blame, self-shame going on here? Number 2, rather than continuing any negative self-talk or trying to fix things to stop the negative self-talk, simply pause. Put your hand on your heart or your cheek and say to yourself, "Oh, girl," or "Hey, my good man." This simple gesture of self-kindness, self-care, and concern activates your own caregiving system rather than the ever-present self-judging system or inner critic, which begins to relax the grip of the negative and opens your mind and heart again to self-acceptance, and then to choices and possibilities. Number 3, be kind to yourself. If the intention to begin a self-compassionate exercise like this triggers more self-judgment and procrastination, you can say to yourself, may I feel safe in this moment. May I be free to fear, stress, anxiety. May I accept myself just as I am, right here, right now. May I know I can be skillful here. Number 4, then drop into a moment of calm, holding yourself and your experience, whatever it is, with self-awareness and self-acceptance. Breathing in a sense of soothing, comfort, and inner peacefulness. Number 5, then choose to do something that will help you feel a sense of movement in a good direction. It doesn't necessarily have to be about the task or project you may be procrastinating about. Redirect your attention to something pleasant, nourishing, rewarding, meaningful. Take a few moments to express gratitude for some source of goodness in your life before resuming tasks of the day. Talk things over with a good friend or friendly colleague. Notice that you're creating more ease and better coping around you, whatever you choose to do next. So in a nutshell, self-compassion interrupts the same procrastination loop. When we procrastinate and then shame ourselves for it, we create a spiral of stress. Self-compassion helps us step out of that spiral and soothe our emotional state instead of doubling down on the guilt. It's not about letting yourself off the hook. It's about treating yourself like a friend. Studies show that people who practice self-compassion are better able to recognize this behavior without ruminating on it or punishing themselves, which actually sets them up for better action later. I love this idea of small compassion breaks because that can spark some real change. We already learned that with these simple strategies like recognizing the emotional discomfort, offering yourself kindness, and remembering you're not alone, that can create a buffer, helping you move forward rather than freezing. This piece reinforces a powerful message. Procrastination isn't a character flaw. It's an emotional signal. Self-compassion is the soft but undeniable shift that lets you hear it, and then respond with curiosity instead of chaos. Let's slow it down here for a moment. Press pause on the to-do lists, the deadlines, and even the inner pep talks. We've talked a lot about doing, but now it's time to turn inward and do a little being. Because when it comes to growth, the real gold isn't just in the strategy. It's in the self-awareness. That quiet check-in where you ask, what's going on under the surface? So grab a pen, open a notebook in your phone, or just let your thoughts breathe as we walk through a few journaling prompts. This isn't homework, it's heart work. A teaser for your 5-day journaling companion available in the show notes. Don't forget. Let these questions guide your curiosity, not your criticism. What am I really afraid of when I avoid something hard? Am I scared I'll fail? Or that I might actually succeed and have to keep it up? Is it the task itself or what it represents? Change, responsibility, exposure? How would I approach this task differently if fear wasn't in the driver's seat? What does resilience look like in my life? Not the poster version. When was the last time I surprised myself by getting through something hard? What helped me push forward? Could I borrow that strength now? What quiet acts or strength do I overlook or downplay? How do I talk to myself when I procrastinate? Are my thoughts kind, neutral, or downright harsh? Would I say the same thing to someone I love? What's one self-compassionate phrase I could try instead? Where in my life do I need a just start moment? What's one thing I've been avoiding that I actually want to complete? What would 5 minutes of effort look like? What might shift my mood or energy if I just tried? How can I celebrate progress even when it's messy or incomplete? What's something I did this week that took effort, even if it wasn't perfect? How can I acknowledge small steps without rushing toward a result? What's one way I could reward myself for just showing up? Okay, no fluff here. If you've ever felt stuck procrastinating, this next bit is your wake-up call. Mel Robbins cuts right to the chase. Procrastination isn't you. It's a habit your brain uses for stress relief. So let's hit pause on the excuses and press play on something that will punch through the noise and maybe even spark your prefrontal cortex into action. So take a deep breath, brace yourself for some straight talk, and listen for the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 strategy that helps you start even when your brain begs you to click one more cat video.
You're not a procrastinator. You have a habit of procrastinating. Big difference. Because if it's a habit, I can teach you to use science to break it. So let's talk a little bit about procrastination. Who in here struggles with procrastination? Yeah, and the rest of you that aren't raising your hand are just procrastinating on doing it, aren't you? I know. You see, I always thought procrastination had to do with the thing I was procrastinating around, right? Like that procrastination has something to do with work. Believe it or not, procrastination has nothing to do with your work. Procrastination is a form of stress relief. Let me explain this. So let's say that you've got some stuff going on in your life, and heck, who doesn't have stuff going on in your life? Maybe you're fighting with your significant other. Maybe mom's or dad's health is failing and it's really, really upsetting you. Maybe you've got some financial stuff. You put too much of your savings into Bitcoin, and now that that's crashed, you're stressed out about it, right? And so you go into work, and when you get into work, you got stuff to do. You kind of walk in and you got this big stress ball that subconsciously is hanging over your head. And so you walk in and you sit down, and you know you got 13 phone calls you need to make. And you also know that you've been chickening out, you've been making easy calls, and there's a bunch of CIOs or other people that are higher level that you haven't been calling. And so as you sit down to do it, and you got the stress on your shoulders, your brain it starts to go, wait a minute, well, you want me to make a call to somebody that I'm scared to make? Absolutely not. I'm so stressed out about, can we just watch some cat videos for a minute? And next thing you know, an hour's gone by. And then, of course, what do? You beat yourself up. So the only way that you can break this habit, and that's an important word for you to hear, you're not a procrastinator. You have a habit of procrastinating. Big difference. Because if it's a habit, I can teach you to use science to break it. You see, all habits have 3 parts. There's a trigger, and in the case of procrastination, the trigger is always stress. Then there's a pattern you repeat, and in the case of procrastination, it is to avoid doing something. And then there's a reward. You get a little stress relief. The only way to break a habit, you guys, is not to deal with the triggers. You're never going to get rid of the stress in your life. But you can 100% change your pattern of avoiding work. So next time that you're in a situation where you feel yourself hesitate, you spent way too much time checking out the highlights from last night's scores, what you're going to do is you're going to go, oh, I must be stressed out about something. Acknowledge the stress. Then go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I want you to count to yourself because I want you to interrupt the habit that's stored here, and I want you to awaken your prefrontal cortex. Then I want you to just work. Just for 5 minutes. The reason why I want you to only work for 5 minutes is because your problem isn't working. It's the habit of avoiding. I just need you to start. And here's the other cool thing. We know based on research that if we can get you to start, 80% of you are going to keep going.
If you want to share encouragementology with a friend who needs to know they're not alone in this journey of self-discovery, you can visit encouragementology.com or anywhere you stream your content to receive this episode and all others. Check out the show notes for the 5-day journaling companion and follow us on Facebook and Instagram for additional encouragement throughout the week. So I challenge you. Stop waiting for the perfect moment and start with the next one. Messy, unmotivated, and unsure if you're ready. Because forward is forward. And 5 imperfect minutes of action beats one more day of overthinking. I know you can do it. Thank you for listening to Encouragementology with Kendall Boyson, where we find positive ways to handle some of life's challenges.
I stumbled through until the path was clear. That's when I